Kajiwara died in 2009 to really not a whole lot of fanfare. I think the Go community really felt the loss, especially the Japanese Go community. But I remember seeing a huge NHK, which is the Japanese national broadcaster, a huge NHK spiel on Fujisawa Shuko when he died. Everyone was on the television crying about this loss of a cultural icon. And there really wasn't anything like that for Kajiwara. And I think that's a bit of a shame. Because unlike Shuko, he never really took a whole lot of titles. But Kajiwara still brought so much to the game. So in celebration of that, let's take this last little lesson that we have here and let's look at how we can apply the flow of the game and the direction of play and the search for truth to the modern opening. Let's just look at that a little bit. I'm going to take another representative opening here. In the modern era, we get a lot of these 2-star point openings. Both players take 2-star points. And now black usually approaches. And this is where we get the first example of the direction of play. So remember, when you play a star stone, the direction of play is outward. You don't have control over the corner when you play a star stone. Here you are expanding from the direction of your play and limiting your opponents. And now, as white, you have some kind of difficulty here. You would perhaps like to respond, but that just gives black more initiative. So let's take that example. This is the flow of the game so far. Black approaches, white responds. Black approaches, white responds. Black connects here to his corner. The flow ends there with black. Black gave up the initiative to make a big play. And basically what this is gote. It doesn't really feel like gote. You have sente, sente, sente is how that feels. But white doesn't have to respond to this move. White can now play wherever he wants or she wants. White has control over the flow of the game now. So there's a great example, I think, of flow for maybe a more visual image of it would be the, I'm going to butcher the name, I'm sure, which would be the Wing Chun. If you've ever watched like Ip Man, those famous martial arts movies, where they're doing the hand exercises back and forth, and they go back and they come this way and they go this way and they go this way, and the pressure flows back and forth, and they take turns trading off who's doing the sweeping, who's doing the punching. And that's kind of similar to the flow of a game of Go. If we go back a bit again, here again, this is black controlling the flow, white going with the flow. Black still has control, white going with the flow. And black comes back and takes a big point. A great example of someone who is a very passive player who just accepts the opponent's plays and goes with the flow of the game would be Lee Chang-ho, who just has the amazing ability to come out on top by 1 or 2 points by going with the flow until his opponent makes a little tiny mistake, just a little one, and then he pushes him aside and takes over the game. And so in this kind of modern opening, having control of the flow is very important. So this is not bad per se, but if you look at it, white's on one side of the board, and black has expanded the control over the board. White is a move behind from the start, so white maybe needs to be a little more active here. So let me give you another really cool example of how flow could work. Are you seeing a pattern? This is something called mirror go. Mirror go is a somewhat, professionals kind of turn their nose up at it. If you play mirror go, they're like, you're not playing go, you're just copying me. And there's a very famous, a really strong Go player, Fujisawa, I want to say Hosai, Fujisawa Hosai, I do believe, not Shuko, a different Fujisawa, who loved to play mirror go. He had a predilection for it. And the key to mirror go is, when do you break the mirror? When do you decide, no, I have found a better move than my opponent had? This is much better. Now I can do both, haha. Anyway, you've got to think of this kind of mirror image as being going with the flow. White is not giving over to black, but he's doing his own sweeping around the board. So let's take it back one more time. I'll show you one more time how the flow can go around the board. I like to do this when my opponent invades directly with a 3-3. I actually like to do this and invade directly at their 3-3. Because now when they respond, I respond. And then they might go, okay, I gotta extend. I go, okay, I've gotta extend. And then they go, okay, I'm going to extend. And then I go, okay, then I'm going to extend. And they go, now I've got to save my 2 stones, I've got to jump. Oh, me too, I've got to save mine, I've got to jump. And then I'm gonna make this nice extension from my wall. And so am I. I don't fall a step behind. This is keeping control of the flow, right? Black still has the initiative, but white hasn't fallen behind. It's an interesting thing you can try in your own games. If you're uncomfortable with giving your opponent a 3-3 invasion like this right away, just make one of your own. And then follow along. And you won't fall a step behind. And now black and white both have reasonable positions. So let's look at it again. I'll give you an example of how you can maybe fall behind. It's black's turn. Let's say black invades at the 3-3, and you're white, and you go, okay, I am going to play a simple joseki. We'll just play out the normal, easiest joseki. I'll just extend, black extends, and then this is very important, white has to extend again. Don't give this to your opponents, don't do it. You take gote, but you have to play here, you have to. And now, black goes again, and you go, okay. I'm gonna play calmly, I'm not gonna freak out. I'm not gonna freak out. Okay, I am learning to play Go, I am growing as a human being, I'm not gonna freak out. I'm just gonna play calmly. I'm gonna be calm. Just extend and calmly extend. And then here too, I'm not gonna freak out, I'm not gonna rush, just gonna play calmly. And now, black can play smack dab in the middle. And what has white achieved? Well, they played calmly. They're okay, right? But now, here we are once again implementing mii. If white plays here, black can extend. If white plays here, black can extend. So, at this point, it feels like white has been too calm. White has been too passive. White has given too much control of the flow of the game to black in this situation. So this is how you could potentially fall behind in a game as white if you're not careful. That's why I recommend when your opponent invades your 3-3, they just do the same. If it's that early in the game and there's really no difference on the board, then yeah, just trade. Just, all right, you take mine, I'll take yours. You don't fall behind. So let's look one more. Uh-oh, I took my star stones off. We got time for one more little looky-loo. Forgive my old American colloquialisms. I come from a small town in America. I come from small town Pinedale, Wyoming. So forgive me if sometimes you're like, looky-loo, what era is this guy from? I'm from a small town, that's why. So here we are again with our really common 2-star opening. Let's change it a little bit. Let's say white plays a komoku instead. Now, black has a lot of options. All of them are fair. Let's say black plays here, the san re se, which was very popular. There's a problem here, and it's that it's gote. It does not force white to do anything. You have plonked a stone down on the board, and you have now given control over to white. As black, in the opening, your main objective, I believe, is to hold on to the flow of the game. And your goal as white is to try and get it away from black and try and get control for yourself. And finding that point where those two exchanges can happen and neither person makes a mistake is the difficulty of taking advantage of the opening. And this is how we can apply the ideas of direction of play and control over the flow of the game to the modern Go board.
By the way, you can also watch these lessons on our platform, gomagic.org. Except there, you'll watch them with interactive quizzes right within the lessons and practical exercises right after them. And if you enjoy watching these Go videos and you don't want to miss others like this one, go smash that like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and this is Go Magic.